Alright, that was our amazing intro music. What do you think?
Fantastic music.
You like that?
That's... When you said you were getting someone from work to do a little tune for the start of the podcast, I was expecting 3 notes, maybe. Yeah. Like, I imagined you doing it.
Right.
But that was a single in a year's time.
Do you know the brief for that was Dubstep Dudley Boys? I swear to God, that was the only brief.
Perfection. Did you tell him that if he got it wrong, you were going to get the tables?
No, I don't think he's much of a wrestling fan. We'll come to that later. Anyway, I am Neil. This is Sam.
Hi, I'm Sam, and this is Neil.
So, welcome to our show, such as it is, this genesis, the seed of an idea. The seed of this idea is time capsuling. We're wondering whether things will still be relevant in 100 years' time. Sam, as a young youth in your flat cap and school shorts, did you ever partake in time capsuling?
I did.
Right.
That's right, I'm changing my story now. I think it's important to point out before we get into the meat of this that we've sat down to do a podcast and we don't really know what we're doing a podcast about. We've just said we're going to do a podcast because we've got a lot of things to say, and frankly people need to hear these things.
And voices like fine silk,
like rich molasses. Ooh. Just rolling off the tongue,
vocal camembert.
So we've essentially whittled it down now to this concept of the list.
Yeah, it's kind of like, are things good, yes or no? Will they still be relevant in 100 years?
And that's the key question.
There are still some things that people talk about 100 years' time. Just trying to think, like 1914, I guess the war.
But the war.
Titanic, people talked about that.
People still bang on about that, don't they?
Just let him
shut up about the bloody war.
Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, sure, 100 years ago, all right.
Isn't it?
No one gave a shit about it until Jackson made those films.
No
one gave a shit. Come off it.
I don't know, that's true. The great Renaissance painters.
Yep, still going on about them.
French
Da
Revolution.
Vinci's popping up in video games now.
Yeah, he's back.
So really, we wanna whittle this down. Neil's created a list. I haven't seen the list.
I want a future space time traveller from the year something to
the year now plus 100.
Now plus 100 to travel back in their time saucer, find these podcasts and wonder where we write. That's what I want to know. Where we write, where these things that we're talking about still relevant? Will they still be relevant in 100 years' time?
Yeah.
Well, that's a very encompassing answer. Or are you just agreeing with the concept?
I'm just agreeing with the concept, to be honest with you. I'm not agreeing with that. I haven't seen the list. That's the other very important thing to point out here. I haven't seen the list. I don't know what Neil is going to suggest to me. So yeah, hopefully, I think he's got a few.
Well, you're a good
treats up his sleeve.
You're a good barometer. I think we all know that your place in history is assured. So
yeah,
obviously, when someone's researching Sam in 100 years' time, they'll stumble across this very successful podcast.
All depends which volume of the memoirs they pick up. Really.
Do you think you'll ever pen your own memoirs?
No, you're doing it.
Oh, right.
I thought we agreed on that. You're writing mine and I'm writing yours.
Oh Christ! Not exactly safe hands, is it?
It's going to be special.
Would you build me up, or would you be quite cutting?
Both.
Would I be dead?
Both.
Have you started writing them, or do I have to be dead?
Oh no, I've started writing them. We're on about 8,000 words now.
Right. What does that take me up to my current?
It's about 1,500 words for every year that I've known you.
Right.
So at some point we're going to have to go back and do the past. I've got a few little nuggets from there that I've picked up over the years.
Right.
But no, it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
All right.
I do say so myself.
I look forward to reading it, as must future time-travelling listeners.
I'd point out in the future they will read it's fiction.
Right.
No one's going to be able to read that and think it actually happened.
Just like the gladiators of old.
Just like the gladiators of old. We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. Right, so the first thing I want to discuss with you is the humble hamburger. There is a trend in London in the year 2014 for people to get together and consume meat, specifically hamburgers, which are easily amongst the most easiest of dishes to prepare.
Indeed.
But it's become kind of a big thing to be seen at fancy chains. Five Guys has made its way over from America.
So you're referring here, Neil, to the trendy wanky burger bar.
Meat wank, basically.
Meat wank.
Meat wank.
Okay.
Do you buy into it? Will people still be doing this in 100 years' time?
I think you know exactly where I stand on the trendy burger bar, Neil.
I'm not sure, actually, because you dislike people, but you do like burgers.
Yeah, and that is probably what they're going to end up putting on my headstone, I imagine.
Here lies bits of Sam.
Here lies what we could find of Sam's remains.
Right.
He enjoyed burgers, but not people.
Savaged by wolves like he savaged his own critics. I
just love thinking of the scenario of me dying by being savaged by wolves.
I've narrowed it down to wolves or dolphins. That's how you're going.
It's probably more likely to be wolves.
I don't know. You'd strike me as a dolphin puncher.
I'd fight a dolphin.
I could see you wading out.
I can't see a dolphin killing me.
Oh, they're smart.
Yeah, but
They trick you.
what's it going to do in a swimming pool?
Oh no, like in the
I'm
ocean.
never going in the ocean.
I think it would taunt you from the shore. It's laughing.
And that's why humans win, because I'd just shoot the dolphin.
Yeah, but
And I don't care who sees me do it.
yeah, but ocean levels are rising thanks to global warming.
Shit, that's a good point.
Sooner or later, you're going to have to go head to head with a dolphin.
Yeah. Again, though, what's it going to do? Just sort of flap about on the land in front of me and...
I think it would mimic you until the point you got enraged and had an aneurysm.
So essentially, the dolphin's chances are based on...
It's a waiting game.
They're based on my health.
Yeah, your ailing health.
And that's pretty much it.
He's just going to wait you out.
Anyway, burgers.
Meaty, wanky burgers. So, I know from personal experience that you quite like a Byron.
I love a Byron burger.
However, you have drawn your line in the sand that you will not wait 2+ hours to eat a burger.
I won't wait longer than... I wouldn't wait longer than 5 minutes to get in a restaurant.
Fair.
I think that's absurd.
In this day and age, yeah.
In this day and age, I think to go into a restaurant and be expected to stand outside in a queue for 2 hours to get a burger, that the entire time you're eating you have some red chino wearing hipster dick staring down his nose at you whilst you eat it.
Wow, you're quite passionate about this.
I am.
I put this in as a light-hearted, easy way to ease us in, but...
Wrong.
There's venom.
You've watched me eat a burger, Neil.
It's quite a sight.
You know I ain't fucking about. I ain't playing games.
When it comes to burgers. So, why has there been a rise in swanky burger joints?
You see, I'm of two minds of this. One, it's undeniable that the burgers at these places are far, far superior to the current crop of fast food burger joints. Your McDonald's.
I am aware of it.
Your Kings, etc.
The Golden Arches.
And like you said, the burger is one of the easiest things to cook, but it's also one of the hardest things to get right.
Do you have a posh burger preference? What do you go when you go into such a place?
Well, I'll only eat at Byron now.
Right. Is that because you can actually get in the door?
Twofold are the reasons. One,
Okay.
you can actually get in the door and get seated.
Two, no dolphins.
Two, I'm not going to get accosted by a dolphin whilst I'm in there.
Hope not.
Or any sort of ocean-faring mammal.
I don't think they do any fish at Byron. They do salad. I know they do salad.
They do salad and chicken. And we saw someone the other day, someone was being brought out a burger that was just a mushroom and a tomato in a bun. Why? I don't know why they wasted all the restaurant's time, to be honest with you.
It's time that could have been spent preparing your burger.
But it's also, I find, the grease.
Right, this is interesting.
The grease element. That is to say, the rendered liquid fat coming off of the burger, not the popular 60s musical. Because I know whenever Neil hears Grease, his mind is already just...
Well, it's already on Bad Sandy.
It's just humming Summer Lovin'.
Yeah. What do you... I don't know if burgers are sustainable for another century because we're running out of natural resources.
Mm-hmm.
What do will there be cows in 100 years' time?
Will there be cows? Well, the cow's quite big, isn't it? The cow's a big animal.
Traditionally speaking.
If you put it next to, say, a chicken. Right. Chickens take up a lot less space than cows.
Where are you going with this?
Space is going to become a problem in the future.
Ah. Okay.
Will they think... I mean, obviously, though, a cow takes up a lot more space, but you get a lot more out of a cow. I think in the future, there'll still be cows, but cows is all there'll be.
Cows will be the only
animal people will eat will be burgers.
That would be so bad.
You have a breakfast burger. It's got an egg on the top.
Like that. Fan of.
You have a lunch burger. Maybe quite just a patty with a lot of salad around it or something.
It's good for you. Get your 5 a day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then in the evening, you've got your bacon cheese. You've got your pulled pork topped burger. You've got your more elaborate dinner choices.
What would you have for treat day if all you could eat was burgers?
If all you could eat was burgers for treat day. I'd just have burgers, wouldn't I?
Just more burgers.
Just more burgers.
What? So you predict that in 100 years' time, the only animal left...
Have one of those burgers that's a burger inside a donut. That's what you have on a treat day. Boom. Burgers have the answer. Always.
That's a good slogan.
Yeah.
Did you know, this is the true fact, that I am of the McDonald's lineage?
Fuck off.
I swear to you this is true. If you go down the lineage of the McDonald's clan, there are 6 McDonald clans. I am of that McDonald clan that ended up with the McDonald's restaurant. But they did sell it to brothers after they opened their 5th one, so I'm not... There's no McDonald's. I'm not heir to a hamburger fortune.
I can tell that. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Not very opulent.
Your flat is lovely, but there's not a lot of gold or platinum in it. And knowing the sort of man you are, I know that if you had that kind of money, you'd have papered the walls with platinum. Diamond encrusted platinum wallpaper.
But do you think in 100 years' time, bear in mind there certainly wasn't restaurant chains as
Made
such.
by Kanye West. No, there wasn't chains, no.
There was like a good pie shop or... Yeah, I'd struggle to think of a good restaurant that's lasted for 100 years. So, but if you look at the documentary / science fiction film Demolition Man,
yeah,
Taco Bell survived long after the first fall of humanity.
They did. Taco Bell or Pizza Hut, if you're watching the European...
dub.
Not the European cinematic release, I think it was only European, the VHS release. They dubbed it over for Pizza Hut. Except for the delivery van outside that they didn't change the logo on.
Sloppy. Would you be happy?
Would I be happy if the only thing I could eat for the rest of my life was
imagine,
Taco Bell?
Well, I know you're quite into your law enforcement, right? So imagine you taken it a step too far. You were framed. You were framed by Wesley Snipes,
right?
And you were frozen cryogenically.
Wesley Snipes. Mid-90s, Wesley Snipes today, after he's been in prison all that time.
Well, I imagine he has his own thoughts about cryogenic freezing.
I imagine he's a changed man these days.
Yeah. He would say, what the boggle about cryogenic freezing. But you were frozen
right
for an period
100
of time.
years. We say 100 years.
Let's
That
say
seems to be
years.
a running trend with this conversation.
Unfortunately for the inhabitants of New London,
Right.
who have since abolished crime and negative thinking, a convict has been unfrozen, who's a bit of a handful. So
Right.
they have to unfreeze someone of that time period to catch them. That someone is you.
So I'm
Playing the part of John Spartan.
I'm John Spartan. All right, I
You're-
thought you were saying that I was Simon Phoenix.
No.
Okay, I'm
No.
John Spartan. Right. Okay.
So you're unfrozen. You have to track down Wesley Snipes, but you are invited by... Is he the mayor? It's been too long. He's not Sandra Bullock. He's basically the guy in charge.
Crusoe.
Was that his name? I'd be impressed if it was, that you could just pluck that out. We'll see. Time will tell. So you're invited out to McDonald's, which you think, why are we going to McDonald's?
Right.
Yeah. Would you be... How would it be for an unfrozen Sam? Like, that is the...
It would be
kind of
weird, but
decadence.
I'd be more put off by the National Neil Gorton Library, if I'm honest with you.
There wouldn't be a lot in that.
Anyone who
library.
hasn't seen the film's not going to know what
It did
I'm
switched off.
talking about.
Switched off long ago. Would it
Yeah,
would it upset
obviously,
you that
obviously there'd be
McDonald's
the
was-
instant. Why has McDonald's survived? What was the final blow in their war with Burger King? What?
That's what would it take?
That would be my first question, I think.
Would it take society like collapsing on itself? I think it was a major earthquake in Demolition Man, like a catastrophic earthquake. Is that what it's going to take to end the Burger War? So it's 100 years in the future.
Right.
You have gone to McDonald's.
I've been taken. You've got to elaborate on it more. There, it's not just it's 100 years in the future and I've gone to McDonald's. It's I've been woken up 100 years in the future.
Yeah.
And taken by the mayor of New London.
Yeah.
To a McDonald's.
Yeah.
My first instinct would be McDonald's. What are you chatting? Let's go, Byron.
Right.
But instantly, I'd notice that he's wearing a tuxedo to go to McDonald's. Instantly.
It's probably quite rare. So, what does the McDonald's of the future serve? Is their menu still the same?
Yeah.
Yeah, completely unchanged.
I think literally unchanged. I don't even think the food would be different.
Did you ever figure out how to use the 3 seashells, by the way?
Why would you bring that up here? Why? Why? Why would you want to make me go through that again?
So you have a theory.
I told you about that.
You have a theory of how the 3 seashells work.
Yeah. Everyone has a theory on how the 3 seashells work.
They should maybe save that to be one of their own. Let's move on to the next item.
I can now almost guarantee in a future episode Neil is going to, on this list, have added the 3 seashells.
Alright, so burgers, the trend of eating burgers shall probably continue for another 100 years.
I think burgers will continue for another 100 years. How we go about getting them is going to be a different story entirely.
Interesting.
I like to think the cows will serve us to them in 100 years' time.
Christ.
Like an offering.
That's dark. Right, next item. A surprise entrance, perhaps, but a film that's dear to every young boy's heart is the motion picture Predator.
Yes.
Perhaps.
I like this list. We're 2 in, and I hope someone listening is writing all this down, because this is going to be the best coffee table book that's ever been made. So, right, we've gone trendy burger places, and now
From
the seminal classic, Predator.
when did you first watch Predator?
Now, controversially,
Yeah.
mainly owing to my age,
Yeah.
I watched Predator 2 before seeing Predator. Which, as I recall, I was the tender age of 7 or 8, I think. No, a bit older, maybe 10. I was maybe 10.
Did you understand what was going on in
Not
Predator?
particularly,
Yeah.
not massively, but I was round at my old man's place, my brother, Sunday afternoon film. Papa Conisby, what does he think? Let's throw Predator 2 on.
There's quite a bit of shagging. in
There was
Predator.
a couple of bits where my eyes were covered,
right.
but strangely, not the voodoo guys going in during the shagging.
Yeah.
It was the beginning,
Oh right, the big drug.
the big drug bust when the bodies are hanging upside down. Again, though, later on when the room's full of upside down skin bodies, eyes weren't covered for that.
You become desensitized by then.
Yeah.
It's true what they say about...
I think it was sort of 10 minutes into the film my old man thought, it's time for him to grow up now. He's 10. He's got to get used to this.
He's got to get used to seeing bodies
He
strung
lives,
up by
he lives in the mean streets of Woking. He's got to be ready for these sorts of images.
What happens if if it's a particularly hot summer in Woking? Is there a real risk of predators?
Yeah, constantly.
Bloody global warming.
It's a natural hunting ground, is Woking.
For interstellar bounty hunt. Well, it's not even a bounty, a trophy hunter. Alright, so the film...
So I saw Predator 2
right
first, and then I think it was when I was 15 maybe, when I'd started sort of going down that line of watching the classics. Your Commandos, your Aliens,
your
and then your Predator.
So why has Predator thus far stood the test of time in your eyes?
In my eyes,
Yeah.
right. Well, Predator was 1980.
Someone should have researched this.
Someone definitely should have researched this. Maybe the person with
Sorry.
access to the list.
Sorry, it's only a pilot episode.
So what was Predator? Late 80s, maybe. Neil, stall for a little bit whilst I look this up.
It's fine. Let's say 89.
1987.
Oh, it was close.
1987.
Right.
Okay, so 1987.
Yeah.
The reasons that now,
The Berlin Wall has fallen.
27 some years later, the reason that Predator is still
Right.
not just a relevant film,
Yeah.
but a classic.
Right.
The reasons are threefold.
Hit me.
Firstly,
Yeah.
you got Arnie.
Yeah.
And you've not just got Arnie, you've got Arnie in his prime.
He has, I think, per spoken word, he has more catchphrases squeezed into this one. He's very cheeky in Predator.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of good lines in this, which is a big factor.
So you got Arnie in his absolute prime. We're talking like the equivalent of Stallone in Rocky 3.
Yep.
Like
Fair.
at his height. Second,
Yeah.
you've got the concept of a villain, an antagonist of the piece, if you will, who is unseen
Yeah.
and is a constant presence,
Yeah.
which is something which maybe ties into the Big Brother sentimentality of the modern age.
Predator is always watching.
Predator is always watching. Probably be a lot more successful than CCTV, especially in the city of London.
If every town had a Predator.
If every town had a Predator who sort of, let's say a Predator trained by Batman. Picture
Thanks.
that. Picture
How
that.
would Predator work for law enforcement? Because he only attacks people that are armed. So what happens
Much like the law enforcement structure of the mega cities of the Judge Dredd universe, I imagine the Predator would be judge, jury, and executioner.
Well, that's a lot of responsibility to
Well,
put
as
on
you
an alien's
remember,
shoulders.
already from its own sensibilities,
Yeah.
the Predator already won't kill pregnant women,
Right.
won't kill unarmed innocents,
Won't kill little boys.
won't kill little boys.
So what happens if
Copy their voices, so
Yeah.
copyright infringement,
Yeah. Want some candy?
but possibly the creepiest thing that anyone could have recorded to play back. What are the uses for that? What are the uses for being able to play back a 10-year-old child?
Why would you offer ghost sweets?
Exactly. Exactly.
So there was a third reason.
The third reason, and this is
It's just going to be Shutan.
this is quite left field,
Right.
but the third reason is probably the single greatest roar or cry in film history.
It does tap into that very primal boys' club.
Yeah.
There's a lot of machismo in that film.
A lot of
A lot of muscles, a lot of Shutan.
You can smell the testosterone when you open the DVD box.
You practically have to wipe your screen down.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good catchphrases to recite in the playground.
There's
immediately afterwards.
many. Like this is the film that gave us Get to the Chopper.
Yeah.
Um,
I think In accent, please.
Get to the chopper!
There you go.
Neil does a much, much better Arnie than me, so I'm going to get Neil to do the rest of these. So you got to get to the chopper, you've got to stick around.
Stick around.
Which Arnie's very, very happy to tell us all.
He's pleased with that one.
Improvised on the spot.
Yeah. It's the guys. Wait, I've got this great idea. I throw a knife at him, and then I turn to the camera and say, stick around.
It's literally like an ode to the 70s Bond films with how they did one-liners in that.
Describing Roger Moore as the Austrian.
Yeah, can you imagine that? Can you imagine Predator, but rather than Arnold Schwarzenegger, Carl Weathers, Jesse Ventura,
Yeah.
rather than them, you had
Roger Moore.
Roger Moore,
Roger Moore in Predator.
Roger Moore, Sean Connery, and George Lazenby rocking around the forest.
Imagine Roger Moore would definitely have a safari suit on.
And one of the hats.
Little pith helmets.
Little pith helmets, yeah.
Would James Bond be able to beat the Predator?
No.
He'd definitely have a snappy comeback ready for him.
I don't think he could, because the thing is as well, you remember that, again, tapping into this primal sort of animal nature, it's only when Arnie downs weapons
Gets
and
muddied up.
goes old school with it,
Yeah.
with his traps
Yeah.
and such, that he wins, that he beats him. And I don't think Bond would. I mean, it's very unlikely that Bond's going to be able to get the Predator in a bath so he can throw a toaster at him.
Yeah, I suppose so. I reckon you could disarm Bond with Bond's always got a snappy comeback, but then so does the Predator. So you can imagine the climax in the jungle where it'd be like, sure, you give it your best shot, Predator. And then the Predator would just be like, what's up, kitty? And then that would really throw Bond.
He wouldn't know
off
what
his
to
A
make
game.
of that, would he?
No, but I'll just leave you be.
Why aren't you going to tell me your plan? Lay it out in elaborate detail.
So yeah, it was a great cast in Predator.
Yeah.
And Arnie very nearly doesn't make it. What did you make of the effects for the time? Because you must have been the whole heat vision thing.
Yeah.
That was new. I'd never seen that before.
Yeah. Still though, to this day, you watch it now. To this day, it still
holds up.
Still holds up. It's you can tell what's happening. You're not like, what's happened to the disc? Why are the colours all screwed up?
At what point did you know it was going to be like an awesome film? Because then I think the moment that it clicked into place was
for me, it was the moment Arnie and Carl Weathers meet each other and have the mid-air arm wrestle.
You son of a bitch!
Yeah, immediately. The second that happened, it was...
You know something special's coming.
You're away. It just... What is it he says? It's like, CIA got you pushing too many pencils.
It's like, make it easy on yourself, Dutch. There was a lot of bromance. I don't buy this whole thing of like, we are a rescue team, not assassins. Like, so you're like, he's a commander.
You're a rescue team, not assassins, but you bought a minigun.
Yeah. What kind of scenario?
Yeah, I mean, what were they expecting?
You're not ever going to tell Jesse Ventura no to anything, but it's like, come on, Jess.
Well,
come on.
He's a sexual tyrannosaur.
That's another good line.
It's not just
Arnie. It's not just Arnie.
It's all of them.
What about Billy?
Billy.
Just the
Big Billy. Billy was the one who they only let him make the film as long as part of his contract was that he had to have 2 security guards with him at all times.
Yeah.
Not to protect him, but protect everyone else on the set because he was renowned for getting into bar fights and being a bit of a crazy character.
It's just a crazy character. Just a little extra spice. It's just a very full movie. Like, you literally don't make them like that anymore.
No.
Like, I think the closest...
And it does. It's got that hinge in the middle as well when they get to the camp. Where it's up till that point, except for they do find a skinned body.
Yeah.
But that could be anything at that point. You don't know what these guerrilla warfare people they've gone to find are like. And then all of a sudden it's just like they're shooting down a forest.
I did read...
Billy's seen someone in the trees.
I did read that it's meant to be set in the country that the annexed president from Commando comes from. So it's like a generic South American country.
They did use it a lot in those days. Before they got Russia and now Korea, South America was used a lot, wasn't it?
Well, it was the 80s. There was
Well, it's the
lots
whole
of
Cuba thing, wasn't it?
there's Cuba. There's the Colombian drug thing. It's very Reagan era film.
Yeah. But they do all of that, and it almost to that point plays out like a traditional action film.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, got yourself an intergalactic predator hunting you down.
So Predator's become quite an established franchise in its own right. For better or for worse, there was Predator 2, which I personally like.
You gotta love. It's just Danny Glover, isn't it? You can't.
But essentially,
Danny Glover and Bill Paxton.
It's just Riggs' week off. That's
Yeah.
what I call it. They finally sent like Mel Gibson away from like Lethal Weapon, and that's just what happens the week he's away.
They sent him off to get some therapy.
Yeah, Danny Glover's essentially just the same character.
Did they miss a trick by not having him say "I'm too old"?
No,
for
he
this
does say
shit?
it. He does say it.
When does he say it?
It's when he crashes into the bathroom when he's chasing the Predator on the rooftops.
Yes.
Get over this shit.
Yeah. So even in Predator 2, they still
Got that Murtaugh magic.
That little Murtaugh nod.
Yeah. So will it still? What do you reckon people will think of 100? Do you reckon within 100 years?
I think in 100 years, I think people still enjoy it as much as we do.
Do you reckon there'll be aliens hunting humans for skulls within 100 years?
Oh, definitely.
People will look back to Predator as a sort of foreshadowing warning.
We'll have gone past humans hunting humans for skulls at that point.
Right.
Yeah, when aliens show up, that's probably the first thing they're going to want to do.
Hunt some skulls.
Get hunting.
Get on.
Only rather than only hunting down armed, dangerous people, they'll only hunt people in the east of London who wear red trousers.
I'd like to think red trousers will be
Two
eradicated.
birds,
Two
one
birds.
stone.
Alright, that was Predator. Next in pop culture, at the moment, I think we can all safely agree that television's had a good run,
Great run.
but its run is already over. Certainly within the next 100 years, television, as we understand it, will be gone. But streaming services,
Yes.
yeah, we're all about. So you've been watching some telly recently.
I've been watching quite a bit of telly recently.
What have you been watching?
So the most recent thing that I sort of binged and caught up on was Suits,
Right.
which has just been added to Netflix, which is sort of a legal procedural drama.
So
But it's quite good because it's not like lawyers being stuffy lawyers. It's sort of the idea is it follows this guy who's the hot shot of his firm. He's sort of a younger, cockier lawyer, and then he takes on a protege. he brings in a predator who offered him some candy.
Right.
And no, it's a kid with an eidetic memory who is avoiding a drugs bust.
Right.
At the same hotel where this guy's interviewing applicants, and he meets him and takes him on as his associate, even though he hasn't got a law degree or anything like that. And yeah, it's I was impressed by it. It's not groundbreaking stuff, but it's a good one. Its first two series are on Netflix. I'd recommend getting on it.
Do you know who makes it? Is it HBO? Is it?
No, it's not one of the big. I think it's like a USA network or something. Or just it's very American, very sort of structured and.
So there are two big American seasons that everyone seems to be watching just now.
Yeah, and then the big like that's probably the latest thing I've caught on Netflix. But ongoing, it's The Walking Dead just finished series 4, which is very impressive. I thought really enjoyed series 4.
So I have it's not true. I've seen a few episodes of The Walking Dead. I started off on the comics and we're sort of saving it up. What is it about The Walking Dead that makes it so good, or why are you still watching it?
I think it's because they stick they stick close to the comics, but they've much more so than with Game of Thrones, which I imagine we're going to talk about in a minute. They've sort of joined certain things together and gone off in different directions and stuff compared to the comics. So they still maintain it's a character drama set in a zombie apocalypse rather than a TV program about a zombie apocalypse. So I mean, it's just really well done, and they don't pull punches where they don't have to. I mean, there's a very the last line of series 4 is like a very quite famous line from the comics, which they had to censor for because obviously it's ABC network television in America, they couldn't be dropping F-bombs.
Right.
So they had to change something. But other than things like that, I mean, the gore's still there, the zombie kills, and it's, I don't know, it's different.
Or do you think the whole zombie thing will be over in 100 years? Do you reckon
I think
we'll all
there'll
moved
be
on?
zombies in 100 years.
Right.
I think if you look at any fiction from the last 50 years, 100 years, any fiction where something's been invented, people in the real world have then gone on and attempted to invent it for real.
So
Communicators in Star Trek, you know, the helicopters in Da Vinci when he designed that.
No.
Someone's thought of something.
Yeah.
In 100 years, someone's going to be trying to make it.
You think in 100 years' time people will be making zombies?
I think that there's got to be a lab somewhere where someone's working on it or looking at it.
Why would you make a zombie?
Just why not?
There's no vampires yet, or is there?
Vampires, load of bollocks, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but 100 years ago, it was very popular to read books about vampires.
Now, you see, I think the whole vampire thing, that was probably more to do with the desire for extended life, because 100 years ago, lifespans were shorter than now.
20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's because they kept eating all those, I don't know, pigeons.
I think it's all going to tie into... It's much like Ricky Bobby says in Talladega Nights.
Right.
With a high-level income and the advancements in modern technology, it's not ridiculous to think that we're going to live to 150, 160 now.
Fair. So what is
And
it?
part of that's got to be about slowing down cell degeneration, and I think it's going to lead
to a zombie outbreak.
maybe not an outbreak,
Right.
but there'll be one. They'll tour him around shopping centres and stuff.
Well, yeah, because I mean, like, there's no one on the planet now that doesn't know zombies. There's no one out there that's never made their own zombie escape plan. So if they do accidentally make a zombie, I reckon they'll catch it pretty quickly. Like, there won't be an outbreak. They'll just have this zombie that they won't know what to do with.
Yeah, that's it. There was a zombie film that was quite... Oh, God, that's really good. It's going to ruin me talking about this whole thing for this section because I'm never going to remember what film it is. But it was like a horror film that was done similar to how Scream was done with slasher films.
Right.
That the people in it sort of knew, like, it's Christ, that's a zombie.
Yeah.
Rather than... And they knew how, like, things like headshots... don't let them bite you, all that sort of stuff. Rather than, because all zombie films, the outbreak occurs because everyone's like, oh, what's that? Why is his face hanging off? Oh no, he's bitten me.
He's bitten me.
Oh, I probably should have run away from the crazed, bloody-eyed man trying to eat me.
Schoolboy error. But wasn't it a Romero one? Because like Romero essentially popularised the zombie.
Yeah, he
genre,
he westernised it with Night of the Living Dead.
And then, like, towards, like, one of his more recent efforts, which is, like, everyone's watching The Walking Dead, but, or everyone's watching, like, The Living Dead, and now there is zombies,
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't seen it, heard about it.
So, yeah, it's... I still think that... Well, I don't really think that there's going to be a zombie outbreak, but I think that there's...
You reckon there'll definitely be, like...
If it was going to come around, it will be from someone... trying.
But okay, so
it's
like,
not something we get. It's not like, you know, someone's gonna fuck a diseased orangutan and all of a sudden we got zombies.
Is that the plot for your zombie movie?
It's the plot for my AIDS film.
You monkey fucker, look what you've done.
Look what you've done.
Look what you've bloody done. But do you reckon, like, in 100 years' time they'll make shows about zombie outbreaks? Will the whole zombie thing still be a draw?
Yes. I think as long as there's a society, there, like an organised structured society, there will be zombies. Because that's what it's about. It's nothing to do with the idea of a zombie or anything like that. It's the draw of it is the concept of a world without rules and without governance and surviving in that.
Right.
That's where the drama comes from.
Bloody hell, you get deep.
When it comes to zombies,
When it comes to zombies. Alright, and obviously the other popular show that everyone's watching just now is Game of Thrones.
Yes.
I
Seems
was
to have touched a chord with quite a few people, that show.
I was going to say beware of spoilers, but come on.
Well, I don't think, actually, to be honest, the first the first episode of season 4, which was on...
mere seconds ago, because this podcast will be up straight away.
Yeah. So by the time you listen to this, we're probably 3 or 4 into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, besides the big... Every season's got a big thing that happens. So if you haven't watched any of them, just cover your ears. But you've got season 1 is Ned, which is the big... That was the big moment for the show of them saying no one's safe.
Yeah.
Which is what makes that show so exciting and interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Then you got season 2 is Blackwater, the big battle of King's Landing.
Oh yeah,
Is the,
season 2 seems to be a bit of a blur.
Yeah, with the wildfire.
Yeah.
Which was the sort of the reveal that it's not. The reveal that in this world, sort of cunning and planning is as important as force and numbers.
It taught you don't fuck with the Dinklage.
Just don't fuck with Dinklage in anything.
Yeah.
I think we all learned that when we saw the station agent for the first time. Just don't mess with him.
Don't mess with the Dink.
And then, season 3, of course, you've got
everyone in the Black Watch dies.
Yeah, you've got the Red Wedding, which was. I still remember the Red Wedding the day after that episode aired. The Metro put a fucking whole page piece about it out, where they literally killed off the basically the lead hero of the entire show and his family.
Yeah, it was pretty brutal.
So yeah, season 4 now picks up. Obviously, episode 1's really just here's where we are. They've introduced a new character.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Stabby Prince.
Stabby Prince.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stabby, vaguely sort of
exotic.
East Asian sort of.
Basically, he's like Prince of Persia, but stabbier.
Yeah. He's like a Stabby Prince of Persia, and he hangs around with a woman who's a bastard. That's how she basically is introduced in the show. She's like his lover, his
yeah, I think he described her as
paramour.
Yeah, he used the word paramour. Was like, ooh, there's a good Scrabble word.
So they're not a couple, but they're obviously. So are they related in this world? You don't know. People reading the books know, probably.
Do you know?
I don't have a clue. I haven't read the books, so.
So why
not enough pictures? Before you ask.
Not enough Predators. Why?
That's a spin-off we all want to see.
Game of Predator Thrones. Why has it captured everyone's imagination? I have a theory that America, as rich as its history is, doesn't have a lot of history. So
yeah, well, it's always a thing with them, isn't it?
With them.
That lot.
That lot over there. They don't have, like, castles and kings and stuff.
Yeah, well, they you've got to remember, as a country, they only really started, like 300 years ago?
Yeah, they did have a king. Said, no, we don't want a king.
Don't want him. We'll do it ourselves. And yeah, look how that turned out. Okay, it turned out pretty well.
No dragons left in America now.
I think that's probably a big part of it, but it's the drama of the whole thing, isn't it? It's the same as The Walking Dead. It's a character drama set in a fantasy world.
Is it just a soap opera for grown-ups?
Yeah. I really don't think that... I think people want to sell it as more than that. And obviously the production and the quality of the acting and
it's just
cinematography and everything in it. But at its very heart, it's just an elaborate soap opera.
You think people... Well, just
that
people
became really popular because they're able to put dragons and magic and Peter Dinklage in it.
Yeah. It does have that sort of water cooler effect. I suppose... Obviously, in 100 years' time, they probably won't be... Sure, they'll definitely have remade it a few times.
Oh, yeah. Well, because he said, hasn't he, Martin's come out and said he reckons there's going to be 7 series, and then he wants the finale to be like a $150 million film, epic, to close it off.
All right for him.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely got its place in history for, like, the Red Wedding. I think people, like, always refer to the Red Wedding, at least for the immediate future.
Yeah. I think it's the water cooler thing that you talked about. It's that. I get like Game of Thrones, I get a sense that outside of sort of the hardcore major fandom, there's going to be that sort of circle of other people who are watching it who probably aren't as invested, but they'll keep watching it because it's, well, what's going to happen next? What's going to be the next big sort of crazy moment?
Crazy moment. I wasn't going to talk about Hannibal, but I kind of want to put that in another episode. Mainly because it's funny. Right.
Hannibal's brilliant. We'll talk about it in another episode.
Hannibal's brilliant, yeah. There's your teaser.
Well, I'd say relevance, I reckon The Walking Dead's still going to be relevant. Mm-hmm. Whether they're going to get to series 108, we don't know. But, yeah, it's the biggest show on TV in America right now. I think it's something like the only cable programming that has higher ratings than The Walking Dead right now is American football.
Oofed.
Which is insane.
Talking of high precision athletes such as NFL, our next topic is pro wrestling.
Pro wrestling.
Will pro wrestling be remembered and indeed still be relevant in 100 years' time?
Now, pro wrestling as sports entertainment, or pro wrestling, are you thinking will specific brands be relevant in 100 years' time?
I'm not so sure brands will, but I want sports entertainment certainly. Will the likes of your Undertakers and your Triple H's, essentially the WWE as it is now, will we still have an equivalent or indeed the same thing in 100 years' time?
I think yes. I think yes and I think no, and it depends on one thing, right? So, as sports entertainment as a sport, I reckon in 100 years' time, it's definitely still going to be relevant.
Right.
Because you look at football,
yeah.
You look at cricket, darts, tennis, like any sport have been around for hundreds of years and keeps going. It has lulls, dips, and
have you seen that darts now has sort of copied pro wrestling in terms of like entrance and theatricals?
It's amazing. It is absolutely amazing when they come out. Some of them come out with girls, and like laser shows and smoke and everything. Come out and do their act, and they come out all built up like that to stand and just move their arm sort of about 8 inches in front of them.
I think it should be a prerequisite of every sport.
Me and an old friend of mine went to the darts, one of the championships when it was on in Bournemouth, and I don't know if you can really call it like going to a sporting event, because you essentially go into a large hall, sit at a bench, and just drink for 7 hours, every so often shouting out 180 louder and louder as the day. As you get drunker, you get more excited by the 180. And that's all that darts really is just a bunch of people sitting around waiting to shout 180.
Again, it sort of rests on its entertainment laurels, and that's why I think pro wrestling will continue. Do you know what I've always wondered? You know, gladiators, right? How they were essentially an ancient form of sports entertainment.
Yeah.
Do you reckon it was real? Do you reckon they actually killed each other? Or in the sort of ways of like, oh my god, they've buried the Undertaker alive, and then he sort of comes back, and just as a sort of, it's just through the ages we've been told that gladiators real, like we're told wrestling's real.
I see your point.
Right.
I see your point. Colosseum's a big place.
Big place.
So they've probably got more distance, say, than wrestlers do from the crowd to the ring.
Yeah.
To fake stuff. But being a scholar of ancient Rome,
right? So I like to introduce you at parties.
Yeah, it was real. They did a lot of killing back then.
But how do we know?
How would they fake it?
How would they not? They're like, oh, don't look in that.
How do you fake someone's head getting cut off 2,000 years ago? They can't make a prosthetic one.
Yeah, they could.
No.
They could just like throw up like red felt and be
like,
oh, look red at that. Felt. His arms come off, and the crowd like when Jake the Snake like pulls out a snake, no one's gonna get bit and be like, oh my god, the snake got him, or bring me these bodies.
All right, it's all fake. It's all fake, all of it, the whole thing. Rome didn't even have an army.
Well, like
just a series of pictures held up on fields. They convinced them from miles away.
To the ancient Celts who'd never seen a photograph before. Like,
who are these flat soldiers?
It's probably how they did conquer the world, just with theatrics, like smoke machines.
No, it was the Roman army conquered the world by being one of the first fully organised, structured and comprehensively trained armies there was.
Like the Shield in the wrestling.
Yeah.
Or like the Nation of Domination.
They literally are...
Degeneration X of Roman times.
Well, I'd say the barbarian hordes were the Degeneration X
of
Roman times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's got me thinking.
Are we genuinely now discussing on this podcast whether the Roman army was real or a series like a
I'm not denying the Holocaust
like
or
a
anything.
Guess Who board that got set up on a field.
I'm not saying that it didn't happen. I'm just wondering if we buy into the theatrics of ancient Rome perhaps more than we should.
I suppose that's a good point with the time past. It's the same deal with the Bible, isn't it? You've got a series of stories that are told by drunkards that can't write around campfires for 500 years.
And it becomes...
Someone finally sits down and writes it down, and it becomes...
lore,
a gospel that millions of people live their lives by and take as fact.
I remember up until... I watched the wrestling as a kid, and I remember... I say that. My mates had, Sky, they were posh, so, I didn't have it. So my only source of, contact was going around my mate's house, and I saw it for half an hour at a time. And I remember Nails breaking out of prison to go and get the big boss man, and I was absolutely convinced that this, for years I was convinced that this was a fact. He didn't break out, it was his first day of parole.
This definitely happened.
He didn't bother getting changed. He arrived to the wrestling arena wearing his prison overalls, got straight into a match, and I was like, oh, this definitely happened. So
I remember I was in the same position where it was my access to it was through friends who had Sky, and I remember we used to always go around one of my mates' houses on Sundays for the pay-per-views.
Yeah.
And I remember things like the whole thing with the Undertaker and the McMahons, and that where they showed up at his house with the flaming crosses and everything, and Stone Cold filling Vince's car up with concrete, all that during the WWE, the Raw Attitude era.
Go on, stick it to the man. You totally bought into it.
I totally bought into it, and to me, Stone Cold Steve Austin, he didn't work for Vince McMahon.
No,
he didn't work for anyone. He just showed up because he liked fighting every week and just pissing off Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
When of course, that's part of the childhood enjoyment of the whole thing, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
Most people, they get to a point, and I think most people say the same thing, where in your childhood you watch wrestling and it's real and you believe it. But then you go through a period where you're you just are completely disinterested in it and you don't even know what's going on.
Girls and video games.
And then you hit a point where you get past that, where you start enjoying it again. Yeah. Which I think we're going through at the moment.
Yeah.
Where I can sit down and watch, WrestleMania that was on the other night. Sit down, I watched that on the stream, and I'd maybe know who 3 people are. I haven't got a clue who these characters are or anything. And you start to enjoy the sportsmanship of it, the athleticism, because it's not real. They're not actually punching each other in the face and that. But if you're getting flipped over someone's head and landing on a sheet of plyboard with a bit of foam over it, it's still an incredible level of athletic ability to be able to do that sort of thing. And I suppose I certainly start enjoying that side of it a bit more. You see, it's like seeing behind the curtain. You start seeing the strings of how these matches are put together.
Just like the gladiators of old.
Just like the gladiators of old.
Because no one will remember.
It's he's cut me. He's cut my arm with his sword. Maybe they're just
rubbing a bit of
blading.
Yeah. They're fine. They just go.
Oh no, he's headbutting me.
They're not kept prisoners. They just go back to their big Roman houses.
Yeah. All right. So we're sticking with that. So we're sticking with the Roman gladiators' raw fate.
I'd love to think in 100 years' time, you sit down and history classes are telling you all about the Undertaker versus the McMahons. This was
This is one of the great rivalries of modern history.
Yeah, it was a fight to the death. They set
fire to the ring at one point.
Yeah, he brought the Undertaker's brother in. Hadn't seen him for years. This is actually on like a kid's history paper. Like a kid's got to write a history report.
Oh, can you imagine the grades that we'd get in that class?
But totally Bill and Ted, the wrestling class.
Yeah. Well, the other thing with wrestling, I think, is you've got to look at the rise of the UFC.
Yeah.
And mixed martial arts as a sport, because that's
all fake.
That's all completely fake.
Like the gladiators of old.
No, you've got. I mean, I've been a fan of UFC for since the days where like Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell were champs.
What's his name? Tito?
Tito
like
Ortiz.
Jackson. Like Tito
Jackson.
Jackson.
Yeah, like Tito Jackson.
Is it in fact just Tito Jackson? Drop the name.
Yeah, they just put some foundation on him.
Right.
Dyed his hair blonde.
Right.
Married him to a porn star and got him fighting.
Just like the gladiators of old.
Just like the gladiators of old. Well, you've got in UFC, you've got a sport that involves. It takes all of the successful popular combat sports. Like, so you've got striking, like boxing, kickboxing,
which is like the fish helmet and the net.
Yeah. The Praetorian Guard.
Yeah.
You've got the the more traditional sort of grappling martial arts like jiu-jitsu and judo and stuff. And then you've got wrestling and submission work on the ground. So and it's a real fight where it's actually two people properly fighting who are just the most unbelievable athletes, because you've got to think a boxer is considered a great athlete. He trains all day, every day boxing. You know, runners run all day, wrestlers wrestle all day, whereas these guys go into training and they know that they've got to cover their groundwork, they've got to cover their striking, their kicking, their submission defence, and then go into a cage. The fact that they actually put them in a cage rather than a ring. Well, in UFC they put them in a cage, it's a marketing thing, but... And then, they fight. And whether that is going to start impacting on wrestling. Because you get now with wrestlers going... Like, Brock Lesnar started as a wrestler, went to the UFC, dominated the UFC heavyweight division, and then went back to wrestling.
Just like the gladiators of old.
Just like the gladiators of old.
So, do you think... You're more of a sporty fan than I am, given your athletic prowess.
Right.
Very few individuals get remembered. Like,
Yeah.
you'd struggle to name an athlete from 100 years ago.
I don't think I could name an athlete from 100 years ago.
Even the
Chariots of Fire guys, I don't think I can name any of them.
Like, Muhammad Ali is like a good example. Like, there's someone who's not fought in some time, but like, you know his name. But that's like the sort of era I could go to.
Yeah.
To like start pulling names. I wonder, in the future, will people might say maybe remember like 1956 England won the World Cup, but they won't remember the players. I wonder if I don't know, it's English, I don't care. And football. I definitely don't care.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can look at that in 100 years' time. People will probably... You'd like to think that people will know who Undertaker is. People will definitely know who The Rock is.
What do you reckon the Rock's legacy will be over the course of the next...
Acting. I reckon The Rock's going to be known in the future as an action film actor. And you can imagine there's probably kids today who... Well, no, because he did the whole tie-back thing. But 20 years' time, there'll be kids who see old man Dwayne in the films and then find out in his past he was a...
quadruple Oscar winner.
Yeah.
And like they'll be like, no, he was never a wrestler, it was just a part he played.
Yeah.
Like the gladiators of old.
The same thing with someone posted something on Facebook. It was like a picture just saying, if you ask a young person today who Nirvana are, they'll reply a clothing company. And it's,
God, I hate the youth.
All of them.
All of them. The youth won't be here in 100. The youth definitely won't be relevant in 100 years' time.
We'll be birthing people at 24 when they can actually contribute to society.
You're swaying into dad territory there.
Well, I've always said, if I ever have children, they will be set from the moment they can start talking until the point they can hold a decent conversation. they will be sent off
to gladiator school.
Yeah.
To fight predators.
To fight predators and Arnold Schwarzenegger. And then they'll come back with some pretty good stories to tell.
I think that's a good point to leave it off. If you have enjoyed anything that you've heard, please do get in touch.
The mad, indecipherable ramblings of me and Neil sat at his dining room table.
No expense spared. Well, this has been a good prequel. I wonder if we'll be picked up and commissioned.
There was one thing that we were going to do before we finish this today.
Mexican Wave?
Wikipedia.
Wikipedia is definitely a hook to have them come back with.
So, I don't think we're really going to be using much of this.
I don't know.
Realistically.
Very good.
I think now that we've done it once, we need to sort of go away, listen to it.
Maybe this will be like the lost tape. Maybe like when people are looking back on our legacy, they're like, where did the magic start?
When we're top of the podcast charts.
Yeah.
And
Gladiator, our weekly Gladiator
cruising
podcast.
around town in our pimped out Gladiator chariots.
Yeah.
People will be crying out for this sort of stuff. We'll probably put this on the 4th DVD as a bonus feature, I reckon.
Yeah.
When sales start to swindle after the 3rd one.
Yeah.
Boost them back up with this lost tape.
Believe it or not, it's been close to an hour. No one's going to listen to this.
No one's listening to this right now.
What was
your
message?
Right now, we can say whatever. No one's listening to this now.
What is your message to someone who's waded through this hour?
Someone who's still listening now?
Yeah.
Well, I don't have to give them a message because I know them. There's no way that
someone...
There is no way that someone who doesn't know us is still listening to this an hour later. I'd be genuinely surprised if some of our best friends are still listening at this point.
Oh, brilliant podcast.
If someone comes back and goes, "What are you talking about?" Of course, everyone was listening till then. I'd call them a liar and a cad on the spot.
There we go. So, if you've made it this far, you're a liar. And
you're a liar, a cad, and a bit of a cunt.
Jesus Christ,
Ed.
All right, and on that pipe bomb, we're going to leave it off. Thanks for listening.
Next time, what's on the list for next time? What's some things that you're going to bring up?
Star Wars.
A lot of Star Wars is going to go on going forward. Star Wars, Lego, Bane quotes,
Batman.
Not games. We should probably have said that earlier on.
Surprise!
When we're not going to talk about video games because frankly we're both fucking sick of them.
We did well to go an hour and not talk about video games.
In fairness, we were
covering
some pretty important points.
I've discovered a whole new side of myself. My conversations don't have to be completely derived of video games.
Yeah, it's pretty good that. Maybe that's something that this could do for people.
Show us a self-decide.
Just, if you go to the pub, you don't have to sit and talk about Journey or whatever. You can talk about Predator and whether the gladiators were fake or not.
It's like the gladiators of old. Alright, you've said Journey, that's definitely time to put you to bed. Thank you very much. We'll see you all next time, maybe. Or maybe it'll be the first time.
It will be the first time.
Tell us after the 4th album.
I hope, having listened to our podcast for several years now, you enjoy this journey back to how it all started.
Unless, of course, you are a criminal psychologist, in which case Sam did it.